President Obama wants Congress to act to raise the federal minimum wage and provide some assistance to literally millions of Americans who are in a bad way. That is not as big of a priority for those on the right, however. We have two reactions to that proposal for you. The first is Bill O'Reilly. Take it away, Bill.
And we have a soundbite that we asked you to analyze. Here it is.
And everyone in this Congress who still refuses to raise the minimum wage, I say this. If you truly believe you could work full-time and support a family on less than $15,000 a year, try it. If not, vote to give millions of the hardest working people in America a raise.
All right, so the question becomes, how many people earning minimum wage are supporting families?
Well, that's the point. I mean, you can't do that on $15,000 a year. I mean, especially you. I mean, you just can't do that. But the fact is that most people on minimum wage are young people. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, 50.4% are from 16 to 24 years old. And of the 3.3 million people on minimum wage, 66.8% are not married. 20.7% are married, so that means you're not talking about millions of people.
Right, one out of five.
Like 600,000 or so.
But it's a very low number making minimum wage anyway, 3 million about, in the workforce, so it's infinitesimal.
Infinitesimal. So I found that to be interesting. Now, we all know that he's quite successful on Fox News, but 3 million, infinitesimal, it doesn't even matter. I looked up what his market share is, the ratings that he gets. And look, I don't know what he got yesterday, but I just put in Bill O'Reilly audience. And on a night last year, he had 1.1 million viewers. So he had 1/3 of a negligible number. But he still considers himself quite important.
I bet
he gets 3 million some nights, but apparently that's an insignificant number of people.
Just to be fair, my hunch is that you looked at a rebroadcast.
That's entirely possible. But let's say he gets the 3 million, infinitesimal. But anyway, I love that you've seen that argument that he provided there given before. They're just young, they don't matter. They're just minorities, they don't matter. They're not married, they don't matter. So apparently, you do not matter unless you're a married, elderly white person, which also makes you a Fox News viewer.
By the way, a lot of these people aren't married because they don't have the means to get married.
That's a good point as well.
Right? So, I mean, you can frame the statistics any way you want, but the fact that the minimum wage is so low that people can't make ends meet is a huge problem, not just for the people that are trying to support their families, but for America in general. When you don't have a strong, healthy middle class, you don't have people that are contributing to the economy, right? If you can't afford to put food on your table, you're not going to go out there and spend money on other things. So, like, this huge gap that we have, this income inequality that we have in the country is impacting everyone.
And because Obama said try supporting a family, like, it's enough. If you work, suppose you're 27 years old and make minimum wage, like, you shouldn't be making $15,000 a year.
Try contributing to the economy with $15,000 a year in earnings.
You know, and then the nonsense. And then the nonsense about who has minimum wage and what happens when you have minimum wage. Bill O'Reilly's version is
it's not
comical.
It also, by the way, the numbers that they were giving you, it's a lie. I mean, it's literally true. They've come up with some way to say that it's 3 million that are literally making the federal minimum wage. But here is how they're lying to you. Let's say, I don't even know what the federal minimum wage is, like $7 perhaps. Let's say it's $7. Who cares? $7. That you're making the federal minimum wage. Perhaps that's 3 million. But here's the thing: you're having a hard time supporting a family if you make $7.10 or $7.25. If you make $7.25, you're not making the federal minimum wage. You still have a very hard time raising a family on that. So let's talk about the people, not just who are making minimum wage, but who would be benefited by a $10.10 minimum wage, which is what I consider the bare minimum, and that's what President Obama and some others are pushing for. According to the Economic Policy Institute, raising the federal minimum wage to $10.10 per hour by 2016 would raise the wages of 27.8 million workers who would receive about $35 billion in additional wages over the phase-in period. And if you know anything about what people who are making just $10 per hour have to do with their paychecks, that would inject $35 billion back into the economy almost immediately.
Yes,
it is not an infinitesimal number of people. It's like 1 out of 10 Americans.
But John, I think that part of the problem is the fact that the federal government gets involved and has a minimum wage in the first place. I mean, I feel like if we allow companies and corporations to make these decisions on their own, and then we allow the American people to pick and choose where they work, then it's going to be more competitive. They're going to offer competitive wages, and that's just the way it's going to work out, right? Because they don't have a profit motive, and they're not concerned about nickel and diming every single employee that they have. It's so stupid.
I don't know if you're right, but we should try it for 4 or 5 decades. Find out.
One small thing, 725 is the federal right now.
Yeah, 725.
And also, there was another point when they talked about married and then 16 to 24, and then if these, but first off, the number was 50.4%, so the other 49.6%, fuck you, because that's a small number, are 16 to 24 and they're teenagers and all that stuff. So can you imagine how many single parents there are? Because they said they included married people, then they assumed no one has kids unless they're married.
That's right.
There's tons of people that are unmarried that have kids.
Yep.
So that's included in these numbers of all these people.
They
So
would
that
say
actually
fuck
takes
those
away
people.
all of their huge numbers that they're talking about, which is 50%. So again, if they actually stop and think about what they're saying, 50% of the people that are making minimum wage are not all these people that they just listed. F you, go home.
Yeah.
Who cares about you?
So the president is really basically misleading everybody, saying there's this whole crew that's in this zone, but they're kids trying. I started at Carvel. What was your first job?
Movie usher.
Okay, you got minimum wage, I bet,
Yeah.
right? All right, I got minimum wage. I could eat a bowl of Sundays if I wanted my complexion to break out, which I really didn't. But we both started for minimum wage. We got into the marketplace. All right, we figured out what you had to do: show up, take a shower, and don't curse at the customer. Okay, and then you rise yourself up. That's what minimum wage is.
We're acting as though, or he's acting as though, young people who have minimum wage jobs shouldn't be making more than what they're making now, right? That it's not that important. They don't have families to worry about. They don't have anything. They don't have any real responsibilities, except for maybe, I don't know, college, right? Paying for their education, which is now astronomical to the point where people have to take out loans, right?
Yeah.
So let's stop pretending as if, people between 18 and 24 are irrelevant, they don't have kids, or in his eyes, they don't have kids and they're less likely to be married. So who cares? They can make minimum wage. No, they need to make money too. Don't act like they're just a negligible part of society.
Yeah.
That's a great point. That's a really great point.
Yeah, and by the way, we had, I don't know if it was Ron Paul, they were talking about, I paid for my college education with a job I had on the side. Why can't they do it today? Nothing has changed. Bill O'Reilly, you get your Carvel job and then you raise yourself up. That was in the late 60s, early 70s. Nothing has changed in the world since then. It's as easy today as it was back then. That's ridiculous. The workforce is different. The sorts of jobs that are available to young Americans are different. The competition is different. College education, as Anna pointed out, is different.
Everybody works in the service industry. That's
Exactly.
where all the jobs are.
Yeah.
And we're
Nothing against Carvel.
these guys, these conservatives and some liberals too, with their applying the exact same standard of what they did to everybody else. I mean, man, that's probably the point I've talked about more on the Young Turks than ever. The bootstraps. I did it. Well, first of all, most of you didn't do what you think you did, and you had way more help than you thought you did. And other people come from different circumstances, and some people come from descendants who were enslaved and kept down and had their ability to progress pushed down by Jim Crow laws. Others are immigrants who we thumbed our nose at for years. We've seen the study again and again and again of what happens when you apply for a job. If you seem black, just your name seems black, you don't get the job. Forget about it if you actually go in and are black, right? Like you go in, your name's John Baxter III, and like, oh man, it's a black John Baxter there. We can't hire this guy. I liked the name, Jonathan Baxter III. So, and these guys presume that because you succeeded, and again, we know with Bill O'Reilly and raised in Levittown, which were built with the significant government help.
Yeah.
So his family could afford the fund.
Yeah.
They
Institutional racism,
right,
where loans were made available to certain types of people, but not to other
But
types
also,
of people.
whether they were made available to other people or not, he still got them.
Yeah.
They got them. They got help. You got help, Bill O'Reilly. You got help.
Which then they could put mortgages on to pay for the college educations of their kids.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I didn't grow up I grew up in a middle class money, but we lived above our means. Tried to. We always had a huge mortgage. They were all, until my dad went to work in PR when I was 16 or 17. Then he finally started making money, and then he split. But I know that I get it, that it was easier for me. I know that it was. We grew up in a nice house that we paid too much money for, but I didn't know. It was nice for me. And I went to a private school. I don't think everyone should go to private school, I mean, it's just dumb. How dim are you not to see through your own almost certainly incorrect notions about how you earned everything that you have? We all get help. It's a freaking community.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like Joe Scarborough saying, I don't understand why these minorities have so many problems with the cops. Why are they being so rude? I've never had a cop be rude to me before.
Yeah.
So clearly no one else in the country has. Yeah, I think members of the media, like politicians, could try to have a little bit more empathy and understanding.